In the vast, sun-scorched heart of the Australian continent there are stories whispered on the wind. These are tales of people who lived as their ancestors did for millennia, untouched by the modern world. For many years these were just rumors, shadows seen at the edge of vision, footprints found in the red dust where none should be. It seemed impossible. How could a group of people remain hidden in a modern nation like Australia? Yet the stories persisted. They spoke of a family, a small clan who still walked the ancient pathways of their dreaming, a living link to a past that was thought to have vanished forever. They were a ghost, an echo in a landscape that had already been mapped, explored, and claimed. This was the story of the Pintupi Nine. They were the last known group of First Nations people in Australia to live a completely traditional, nomadic life. Their world was not one of maps, borders, or clocks. It was a world governed by the seasons, the availability of water, and the sacred stories embedded in the very earth they walked upon. The home of this last nomadic group was the Gippsland Desert, immense arid expanse in Western Australia, stark, breathtaking beauty, deep red sand dunes marching toward the horizon, rocky outcrops, ancient and weathered, sparse vegetation, hardy spinifex grass, resilient mulga trees, desert oaks standing alone against blue sky. Not just environment, their entire universe. Source of their food, source of their water, source of their tools, source of their spiritual beliefs, life dictated by the search for water. The Pintupi possessed a mental map called Tingari, not lines on paper, stories, songs, ceremonies. It detailed every rock hole, every soak, every clay pan that might hold water after rare rain. Survival depended on this knowledge. The daily life of the Pintupi Nine was a testament to efficiency and profound environmental knowledge. Their days began with the rising sun, the cool morning air offering a brief respite from the heat. The family would assess supplies of water and food and make communal decisions. Stay near a known water source, move on after the promise of rain, follow the seasonal availability of a plant or animal. Decisions guided by the elders' wisdom and the immediate needs of the children. Hunting and gathering were their pillars. Men were skilled hunters, masters of tracking. They could read the desert floor like a book, spotting the faintest tracks of a goanna, a kangaroo, and emu. They hunted with long, finely crafted spears and with spear throwers called woomeras, launching weapons with force and accuracy. A successful hunt meant celebration and vital protein. Meat was cooked in a pit of hot coals, then shared among everyone. Long before the final contact in 1984, there were whispers and fleeting glimpses of this hidden family. Welfare patrols, prospectors, anthropologists moving through the remote western desert would occasionally find signs of their presence. A freshly abandoned campsite with the coals of a fire still warm. A set of footprints, smaller and more worn than those of people who wore shoes, heading off into the vast emptiness. These discoveries were tantalizing and mysterious. They suggested a small group was deliberately evading contact, choosing to remain in the bush, as they called the traditional world, rather than coming into the government settlements. One of the key figures in this story was Jeremy Long, a patrol officer for the Weapons Research Establishment. In the 1950s and 60s, parts of the Western Desert were used for rocket testing. Long's job was to ensure the area was clear of people. During his patrols, he and his colleagues would frequently find tracks and other evidence of an uncontacted group. They made several attempts to make peaceful contact. The year 1984 marked the turning point. A severe drought had gripped the Gippsland Desert, making life increasingly difficult for the small nomadic family. Water holes were drying up, and game was becoming scarce. At the same time, a group of Pintupi people who had been living in the settlement of Kintore decided to move back onto their traditional lands. They established a new, smaller outstation at Kiwirkura. This brought the settled Pintupi much closer to the area still being traversed by their uncontacted relatives. It was only a matter of time before their paths crossed in a definitive way. In October of that year, 2 men from the Kiwirkura community were out in the desert when they came across a startling sight. A family was camped by a small fire, 2 women, 2 teenage boys, 2 teenage girls, and a younger boy. This was the group they had heard about for years. The family was frightened. They had never seen a motor vehicle up close, nor had they seen other Pintupi people dressed in modern clothing. One of the teenage boys, Warlimpiranga, brandished his spears, ready to defend his family. The moment was tense, a meeting of 2 worlds separated by decades of history. The men from Kiwirkura spoke to them gently in the Pintupi language, explaining who they were. What little we know of their traditional life comes from the accounts they shared after 1984 and from the broader cultural knowledge of the Pintupi people. Their spiritual life was centered on the dreaming, or Chukurpa. This is the foundational belief system for many First Nations peoples across Australia. It's a really complex worldview that explains the creation of the world, the laws of society, and the spiritual connection between people, animals, and the land. For the Pintupi Nine, the Chukurpa was not an abstract concept. It was a tangible reality, written into every feature of their desert home. The epic journeys of the Tingari ancestors formed the core of their beliefs. These ancestral beings traveled across the land during the creation period, hunting, fighting, loving, and performing ceremonies. As they traveled, they shaped the landscape, creating the sandhills, rock holes, and salt lakes. Their actions and adventures are recorded in a vast cycle of songs and stories. By traveling the same paths and singing the same songs, the Pintupi were not just remembering the past, they were actively participating in it, maintaining the spiritual energy of the land and ensuring the continuation of life. The transition from a nomadic desert life to a settled community was fraught with immense challenges. The most immediate threat was to their health. Having lived in complete isolation, the family had no immunity to common germs and viruses. Simple illnesses like the flu or cold, which most people would easily fight off, became life-threatening. Beyond the physical challenges were psychological and cultural shocks. The concept of a sedentary life was completely alien. In their traditional world, staying too long in one place risked exhausting local resources. The noise, the crowds of the settlement, and the rigid structure of time were overwhelming. The abundance of processed food, especially sugar and white flour, shocked their systems. Their bodies were adapted to a lean bush tucker diet. The sudden dietary change led to diabetes and heart disease, conditions tragically common in many remote First Nations communities. The story of the Pintupi Nine is more than just a fascinating historical footnote. It is a profound and living chapter in the story of Australia. Their journey from the timeless world of the desert to the heart of the 21st century provides an unparalleled insight into the resilience and adaptability of human culture. They are a bridge between two worlds, a living link to a way of life that sustained people on this continent for over 60,000 years. Their existence challenges our modern assumptions about progress and what it means to live a rich and meaningful life, reminding us that there are other ways of knowing and being. Their story forces us to confront the complex and often painful history of Australia. The reason they remained isolated for so long is directly linked to the frontier violence and dispossession that accompanied European settlement. The incredible artistic legacy of the Pintupi artists is perhaps their most visible contribution. Through their paintings, they have shared their sacred world with a global audience. They have asserted their ownership of their stories and their land, turning the Western art market into a platform for cultural assertion. Their art is a declaration that their culture is not lost, but is a dynamic living force. It ensures that the stories of the Tingari ancestors will continue to be told, not just around a campfire in the desert, but in the great cultural institutions of the world, educating and inspiring future generations. Their legacy is a treasure not just for Australia, but for all of humanity.